Hello Endeavour, here I am on this Tuesday, sneaked away in Endeavour class to share with you chapter 27 of The Fire Thief. Now remember, for the Wednesday we've got 2 chapters, so grab yourself something nice to eat, a little snack and a drink and have a listen. The storm in after the execution. Sorry about that, we're back with our chapters in the right order now. Theus was hanged instead of Uncle Edward, then came back to life as only a Titan could. You'll remember that we were all happy that Theus and Uncle Edward had survived the execution, but our problems weren't over. We were hugging one another on the stage when we really should have been moving quickly to complete our escapes. Very quickly. Hugging January Storm was something I'd never thought I'd do. You're so bony, it's like hugging the skinny skeleton, I told her. She hugged me harder. Just what I was thinking about hugging you, she said and laughed. She didn't look half so ugly when she laughed. The gentleman writer stroked his beard and said quietly, "You aren't safe yet, you know. Jim has to get on that 10 o'clock train or they'll come looking for him. And if they spot Mr. Slaughter still alive, they'll take him off and hang him again." January let go of me and looked up at Theus. "The pipe in his throat worked then?" she asked. Theus took the pipe from his pocket and showed it to her. She frowned. "When did you take it out of your throat?" she asked. "While I was lying in the coffin being carried along here," Theus lied. "That's right. You and I know he didn't use the pipe trick. He simply let himself die. But January Storm never knew that. It would have taken too much time to explain the full story. We didn't have any time, and she might not have believed the story of the Titans, gods and Furies anyway. All that matters is that you believe it." She nodded. "So how do we get Mr. Slaughter out of town?" "In the coffin, I guess," I said. January groaned. "It was all I could do to carry Theus back here," she said, rubbing her skinny arms. "I'm not sure if I could carry someone as as great as Mr. Slaughter." Uncle Edward stood tall and sucked in his stomach. "I hate to weigh so heavily on my friends," he said. "I owe young Theus everything, life and liberty, my boy, and yet I find myself humbly begging for yet one more favour. Can you help these poor motherless children carry me to the station?" Theus paused just a moment. "I can't," I said. "He can't," I said. "He has to leave. He has to leave right now before it's too late." "Too late for what?" January asked. "Nothing," I muttered. "Too late for nothing is too early for something," Uncle Edward said. "Eh?" I blinked. "Look, Uncle, just take my word for it. Theus hasn't a moment to lose. He has his own problems." Theus looked miserable and torn, and then he forced a smile and said, "No, don't worry, Jim. I've got time." "Don't worry," I cried. "You've got some dirty, great... I don't want to see you safe before I want to see you safe before I leave," he said. "Don't argue, but let's be as quick as we can." I shook my head, defeated. A human can't beat a Titan. January and the English gentleman were already busy. They helped Uncle Edward climb into the coffin and then stuffed the skinny skeleton alongside him. At his feet they found room for the make-up box and the magic lantern. The English gentleman bored a hole in the lid of the coffin using a small penknife that he kept with his pipe. We slipped January's pipe, the one she thought had saved Theus's life, through the hole so Uncle Edward could breathe. Theus picked up the end of the coffin and the English gentleman the other. As we hurried down the street, people moved out the way. Well, you wouldn't want to stand in the way of a coffin, would you? Sergeant was waiting for me at the station. The town hall clock struck 9, an hour before my train was to leave. The policeman handed me a rail ticket and one for Theus. I'd forgotten that Theus was supposed to leave town with me, but Theus didn't want to be trapped on the train when the Fury arrived. He wanted to be on his wings and away. We had to make sure the sergeant left before the train pulled in. Time tocked by. The policeman sat on the platform bench to wait. His gooseberry eyes spotted the pipe in the coffin lid. "You taking that old skeleton with you? You're not planning to go on with the act now your uncle's dead, are you?" "I may do it with Theus here," I said. "So what's the pipe in the lid for?" the policeman asked. "So the skeleton can get fresh air," I said. "It breathes." "No, but he goes mouldy if he's sealed up. Smells like rotting bones," I lied. Sergeant nodded and sat there. I took January by the arm and pulled her towards the door of the waiting room. "I've got to get rid of that policeman," I said. "Why?" "Theus mustn't get on the train. Can you help?" "Can a girl outsmart a boy?" she asked. "No," I said. "Wrong answer, dummy," she said. "Yes, a girl can outsmart a boy, so yes, I can help. Watch me." She ran quickly to the station entrance and vanished round the corner. A minute ticked by, another precious, dangerous minute. Then she appeared again, scuttering and screaming through the station entrance. "Oh, Sergeant," she cried. "There's been a terrible accident down by the harbour." "By the harbour? One of Mr. Mucklethrift's ships has crashed into the quay and it's shipping water." "Anyone hurt?" No one hurt, but Mr. Mucklethrift is desperate to have the ship unloaded before it sinks. He's offering gold to anyone who helps. The gooseberry eyes were bulging. It is my duty as an officer of the law to help in disasters like this. I would help the good Mr. Mucklethrift without a penny's reward. I'm sure you would, but if you get there now, there'll be a lot of pennies. You'll be rich, and there are all sorts of street beggars heading for the scene. They'll get the money if you don't hurry, she babbled on. Sergeant looked at us. I have to go. They need a leader, a man in charge. So go, the English gentleman said. I'll make sure these villains get on the train, he offered. Oh, you're a true gentleman, sir, the policeman said, and he almost tripped over his truncheon in his hurry to get his reward. January smiled. There you are. It'll take him half an hour to get to the harbour, and by the time he asks around and finds there's no accident, it'll be away after 9:30. The platform clock tocked on 9:05. By the time he gets back here, she resumed, the train will have gone and he won't know who's got on it. Well done, young January, Thea said, and she glowed with pride. He hugged her briefly and shook hands with the English gentleman and then said to me, and thanks for helping me, Jim, he said. Go, I moaned, run, get your wings from the storming and fly. You can fly, January gasped. Theus nodded his handsome head. I need to make one last visit before I leave the city and then I'll be gone. Goodbye and good luck, he said. Then he was gone, and that should have been the last I saw of the Titan. But it wasn't, as you will see. I won't spoil the story by telling you what happens next. You have to remember a writer's job is to keep you guessing and keep you turning the pages. Haven't you learned anything from me? Now back to the story. But you'll be in trouble, young lady, the gentleman writer reminded her. The sergeant could lock you up for that. Oh, he won't, January grinned, because I won't be here. When he gets back, I'll be on the train with Jim and Uncle Edward. You will, I said. Yeah, I'm tired of slaving away in the Storm Inn, and I'm sure it was wrecked last night anyway. Father won't miss me, and you need a woman to look after you. We've managed all right up to now, I said. She placed her hands on her hips and looked at me. You have lost all the loot you stole, she reminded me. True. And you were caught by the police. Yeah, but you've been thrown out of the city. I know, but... And Uncle Edward escaped death by a miracle. Yeah, well, next time it might not be so lucky, she said. And you know, really, that a girl can outsmart a boy, so who's better than a girl to go alongside you? You don't have a ticket, I cried. I have the ticket that your friend Theus won't be using, she said, and her grin was sharper than the English gentleman's penknife. My mouth opened and closed, but the words to defeat her just wouldn't come out of my mouth. Give up, Jim, the gentleman writer advised. I give up, I said. January turned on her heel. I'm going home to pack a few things. I'll be back in time for the train, she said, and ran off. The clock ticked on 9:10. Sir, will you look after Uncle Edward? I asked the gentleman writer, nodding at the coffin. Of course, why? I have to see someone before I leave. And I left the station for one last trip to Eden City. Sit tight, guys, for chapter 28.